Welcome to another Nolan Rossi podcast. Today I'm talking with Danika Johnson, who is a coach with ProPhysique. She's a certified mind and body coach, and she brings not only the knowledge of being a coach in the bodybuilding, nutrition, and physique world, but she's also been a competitor. Danika is interesting to me, not just because of her experience coaching people through body transformations like the one that I'm in, but Danika is also a type 1 diabetic. And my wife, Nicole, was diagnosed as a type 1 diabetic as an adult just a few years back, and it's something that really has changed our lives and how I look at nutrition and wellness. In this episode, we talk about the difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes. We try to clear up some of the confusion by distinguishing between type 1 and type 2 diabetes, and even being a pre-diabetic, and what that means to anyone that is trying to make a change in their life. By approaching things with a mindset approach, Danika has a lot of wisdom and insight to share here. I know you're really going to enjoy it. It's really helped me because I'm in week 6 now of my body transformation. I've lost about 19 pounds. I'm getting stronger every week. The biggest change that I've noticed this week as I've dropped calories just a bit more, that the timing of when I eat really affects my gym performance. And I found that if I have my larger meals just before and just after my workout, particularly with the amount of carbs that I'm eating, it really helps my performance and how I feel, not only in the gym, but throughout the rest of the day. And this is an interesting point to talk about because we do get into carbs and what they do and how they might impact a non-diabetic as well as someone that is type 1 or type 2. All right, I'm excited for you to listen to this one, so here it is. Danika, thank you for having this conversation with me today. We're going to talk about mindset. We're going to talk about diabetes and lifestyle change. And I was drawn to you first and foremost because my wife's a type 1 diabetic. And this is a change in our lifestyle in the last 3 years. And I was looking for a coach's input with like where I was at and with some of the changes I was trying to make. And when I found out that you have that lived experience of being a type 1 diabetic, I was like, okay, there's some insight and some sensitivities here that I could learn from. And so could I just start with getting the story of when were you diagnosed with type 1 diabetes and how did that change your life?
Yeah. So mine is a little bit different from what I know of, like your wife's diagnosis. But I was diagnosed when I was 11. So I was like an active kid. I played 3 sports. I ate pretty healthy. I mean, I could out-eat my dad. Like I had a really good relationship with like movement of my body, and I was just cruising. I feel like I was a pretty good, solid kiddo. And then at like 10 years old, my mom started to notice that I was losing a lot of weight. I was feeling very sluggish in my school. So like in classes, I would fall asleep. I would chug water like it was nobody's business. Like I would sit underneath the water faucet because I couldn't get enough. I'd hide in the bathrooms to try to just chug water all the time. So my mom did what mommies do and brought me to the doctor. They took a urine sample, they did some lab work, and then immediately called to say, you got to bring her to the emergency room. She has type 1 diabetes. And at that point, I had no idea what was going on. I was 11. I was like, cool, give me some grape-flavored medicine and I will be good to go. That just was not the case. So what I remember from the experience, I had to stay in the hospital for a couple of days to take insulin. I was severely dehydrated. I had to regulate my blood sugar levels and then learn a whole new way of life. So there were so many doctors that came in. And you have to remember, so like I'm 40 now. This was when I was 11. And times have changed so much. And I'm grateful for that because I think that the care and consideration now is much different and much more in depth and whole body experience, where they were like, I was injecting myself. So I had a needle, I had vials of insulin. I would have to pull the syringes. I took long-lasting insulin and short-acting insulin. And I just don't think that they were as knowledgeable about the psychological impact either. So they didn't really talk about that. They gave me like, here's the foods, here are on the bad list, here's the good list, here's your free foods. A priest came in and was like saying prayers over me, and it was a whirlwind. It was just a whirlwind of trying to figure out I remember the dietitian saying, you eat 3,500 calories a day, we're going to have to cut that in half. And me being like, I don't even know what a calorie is. Like, I am not equipped for any of this right now. But I had to. It wasn't really an option. So then I saw diabetes educators. I had a great endocrinologist. I had two at the time, a nurse practitioner and then an endocrinologist. And I stuck with them. I mean, she just recently retired a year ago. So I stuck with her in the whole entire time she was able to practice. So it was just a change of complete lifestyle, testing my blood sugar, learning about blood sugar, learning about insulin, learning about counting carbohydrates, activity, sleep. It changed everything.
I understand from the shift that Nicole's diagnosis, has shifted us. But what fascinates me about your story is that while you had to shift this understanding and learn and adapt, it didn't become some sort of lifestyle sentence where you just realized that or thought that you couldn't do things or be a certain way, because you certainly have continued down a very active lifestyle path, being a physique competitor, becoming a personal trainer and a coach. So talk to me about that relationship of being a very active person with diabetes, because for a lot of people, these are friends and other people I've talked with, and even experiencing what my wife has gone through, all of a sudden you have this sensitivity that you didn't have before. And so you can be afraid to eat too much, carbs, or to move too much, because it creates these new things inside your body that are really scary and new. So can you tell me about learning to work with diabetes, type 1 diabetes, and being as active and wellness-minded as you are?
Well, it didn't come without any struggles or challenges. I will absolutely say that. And I went through having an unhealthy relationship with food, and at 11 years old, being told, it was also, I was diagnosed right before Thanksgiving, and that was my favorite holiday. And I was told that I could only have a half of a biscuit. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. This is my passion right now is to have these biscuits, and being able to navigate that from an emotional perspective. I again just wasn't equipped yet to take in that information. So I definitely struggled during, I went through the denial. I went through the rebellious stages of I'm just going to lie about everything, or I'm not going to track, or I always took my insulin because literally they said, if you don't take your insulin, you're going to die. And I was like, well, that's not a good option for me. So I'm probably going to do that. But I was growing up, I was going through adolescence. I loved sports. I think I just learned of the non-negotiables along the way, but I still didn't pair with it the mindset of it. I knew that I had to test my blood sugar at the nurse's office at 10 a.m. every day. That was a non-negotiable. I knew I had to take my insulin. I knew I had to make sure my blood sugar was good in order for me to perform, because I was a really good athlete. And in order for me to perform, my blood sugar needed to be in check. I knew that like during halftime at games when everybody was chowing down on orange slices, I could not do that because that would affect me in a negative way and my performance will be impacted. So like there were a lot of things that like became very black and white to me. And I don't think it was until college, if I'm being honest, when nobody's eyes was, no one was on top of me. I didn't have eyes on me. It was me. Like it was just me that had to like figure out my own life and figure out, oh shoot, like this is just me. That I realized, oh, wait a minute. Like it's kind of cool that I have this ability to know all this information inside of my body. And people don't know how when they slam down alcohol and eat cold cheese pizza at night that it impacts their sugar. Like I knew that knowledge because I had it right in front of me. Or lack of sleep, how it impacts my sugar. Or a night out dancing, like how that activity impact. I was also a dancer in college. So it was like opening up a world of, wow, like this is kind of really cool. Like what a cool tool that I have this knowledge. And not that I want to have this because it can be burdensome, but it's pretty cool that I have this ability to know so much about the inner workings of my body. And I think that's what kind of changed it for me, being able to see it as like a blessing in disguise and know that like this is just going to be a sidekick. Like it's not going to be something that dictates how I experience life. It's going to actually probably help me experience life a little bit better because I'm more in tuned with how my body's working. And that like shift of mindset, I just ran with it. Like I was like, I know so much about nutrition that other people don't know. I know so much about like the impacts of moving. What does walking do in comparison to running or a hydration? Like a simple thing like just staying hydrated. What does that do? What does caffeine do to my body? What does alcohol do to my body? Like I just took it and ran with it and dove into it. Like I was like, if I can't get rid of this thing, it's like something that will not just go away. I'm going to befriend it and I'm going to make it something that's like my superpower. And that's kind of how I guess I became who I am today, is like I really just made it become something that was a valuable little skill set, superpower thing that I have.
It's a beautiful way to really approach any sort of barrier in our life when we might instinctually resist it and say, no, how do I avoid this or get rid of it? To actually befriend it, bring it alongside, ask, maybe what is it asking of me, or how am I going to be led to a deeper knowledge? There's a huge shift in approaching it that way. It's like, we've all had moments in our lives where we try to resist reality in front of us. Like, no, this is not happening. I'm not going to do this. This isn't how it's going to be. But, like the universe wins ultimately in some of these situations. So it's like resisting or denial becomes a huge distraction from us to learn the lesson that's in front of us or to grow.
And I also think too, because I work with clients on this too, but every challenge thereafter, I've always been like, what a great opportunity for me to learn more about myself. Like any little challenge or hiccup or obstacle or speed bump, I've always been like, okay, this is probably an opportunity for me to learn something, to gain a new skill, to like zoom out a little bit, to gain perspective. Because we could just see challenges, or like, for instance, when I became a mommy, I could have just been like, well, forget it. Like, I'm a mom. Like, it's a challenge and I'm just going to like succumb to it. And I was like, no, what a cool opportunity for me to learn better time management or to learn better emotional regulation skills. Like, this is a really awesome opportunity for me. So I guess type 1 diabetes has helped me to see things as more of opportunistic, as opposed to like this like roadblock that I can't get through. And it's helped me to also persevere. Like, if I could handle this, like, what else do you got for me? Like, I'm pretty solid now. Like, this is something that I do every single day. And if I can, like, gain strength from that, then, like, it showed me my capabilities as a human. And I think we all have that potential. We just get nervous to tap into it sometimes. But then once you tap into it, you're like, whew, watch out, world. Like, I'm going to go for it. And, like, the fire is inside of me.
That's beautifully said. So it sounds like this was a catalyst into what you're doing now with your life in terms of being a coach, being a competitor. Like, this knowledge embodied did become like a superpower and started to lead your path. So when did becoming a coach, getting your certifications that you do, becoming a competitor, was this all just like a real natural path for you?
So yes and no. So I was always athletic. And then in college, like I said, I danced and I choreographed. And so I was still active. Like, I did stuff on stage. I actually met my husband in college. So he was the one that introduced weight training to me. And then eating protein. He was like, you should probably eat some protein. And I learned more about nutrition. And I loved that stuff. Like, I loved working out. I loved nutrition. I really liked psychology because along the way of having diabetes, there weren't too many people in my life that said, and not to any fault of theirs, I just don't think that they knew that this probably would have been a good question, but nobody was like, how are you? Like, I'm here for you. How are you? You've been dealing with this disease and, like, it's pretty scary sometimes, and how are you? And I always felt like, you know what, I'm going to be that person that I wish that I had when I was growing up, like when I was going through this stuff. So psychology was something that, like, I always dove into. I wanted to be a school social worker. I really wanted to work with high school students and adolescents and help them to realize their power and their strength and become amazing, like in whatever capacity they want to become amazing. So that was always something that I loved. And I did that. Like, I was a school social worker. I worked in an alternative high school. But I loved fitness. And fitness was always my jam. And I loved nutrition. Along the way, I still did, like, social work. I still did, like, the psychology and counseling. But I also was training myself. So then I wanted to do a bodybuilding show. Like, my husband did one, and then somebody asked me, have you ever thought of it? And I was like, why not? Like, why not? Like, what's the worst that could happen, right? And so I did. Then I fell in love with that. Like, I fell in love with the sport of bodybuilding, and it also worked really well with keeping really tight control of my blood sugar. Like, everything was very calculated, right? Like, in bodybuilding, you measure your food out and you know what you're eating. Like, and it's single ingredients. Like, it's as close to nature as possible. And so I knew the impact it would have on my sugar. I knew how much insulin. So, like, it was a win-win all around. Like, I was an athlete. I could manage my blood sugar really good, and I was gaining strength. And then I was on stage, and I loved being on stage as a dancer. So it was like this world that I just fell in love with. And then it kind of turned into, as I met more people in the bodybuilding world, I realized that, again, a lot of these people needed somebody to say, how are you? Like, just a simple question. And so I was like, wow, like, if I could combine what I've always wanted to do is just be that person for somebody. And, like, that's a love and a passion that I have. And I also have passion for fitness. And if I could bridge the gap and combine the two, what a beautiful world that would be. And that's exactly what I did, is I took both worlds that I love and I, like, put them together.
That's amazing how it all came together. It's like everything that you came through became like the gift that you were able to offer other people that you didn't fully get, when you were younger.
Yeah. And I think that in retrospect, they just didn't know how to provide support. Like, I think a lot of people, to include in my adult life, I think that like vulnerability is really difficult. And I think having hard conversations or just having conversations in general, right? I feel like people just sometimes are like, ugh, what do I say? What do I do? And that's just not me. Like, I love to talk and I love to learn and I love to like gain perspective and I love to listen about like people's stories and their journeys and then be like a safe space for them. I feel like maybe when I was growing up that was there, and it's changed. Like, it's changed now even with like social media and just like our phone use. Like, there's just this disconnect sometimes, I think, and communication is a very human thing to do. Like, it's needed, and we should probably, get out in our community a little bit more and ask people how they're doing. Like, I will be the one if someone says, hey, good morning, how are you doing? And then a typical response is, good, how are you? Good, and then that's it, right? I'm like, I'm great. Actually, today, like you're gonna get in a conversation with me. But that was just something that I've always felt from like a child was like missing in life and is so needed. It probably would have helped me to navigate diabetes a little bit more, or like to be able to like come to grips with it. I probably wouldn't have so much struggle. I would have struggled. It was a hard diagnosis. I would have still struggled, but it would have been a little bit easier, maybe cushioned a little bit more, or I felt supported or not alone. That's like another thing. I think that the world of bodybuilding, the world of fitness probably in general, I think sometimes we just feel lonely in our own little bubble that nobody cares, and that's just not true.
Well said. Okay, so far we've talked about your story in type 1 diabetes. But I also want to talk about type 2 diabetes. The numbers are pretty staggering. Like 1 in 3 Americans are pre-diabetic. 1 in 6 are diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. So help us understand the difference between type 1 and type 2.
So with type 1, my pancreas doesn't secrete any insulin. So it's an autoimmune condition, and my beta cells are pretty much just killed off. They are not producing any insulin, and my body is basically mad at itself and it's like, nope, we're not going to do this. And it's attacking the cells. So, and that is something that typically would be called, like when I was diagnosed, it was like childhood diabetes. Like childhood, it would not be typically diagnosed in an adult. Nowadays, there's a higher prevalence of adults being diagnosed with type 1, so which is pretty wild. But type 1 is something that you cannot reverse. You have to be medicated for it. You have to take insulin for it because your body will not produce insulin. Sometimes you can get tested to see there are some type 1 diabetics that are producing a small amount of insulin, but then they still would need something to supplement for, like they still need the insulin that they're not receiving, right? So that is type 1. It cannot be, it has yet to have a cure, but there's so much technology out there that's supporting it and helping to manage type 1. Type 2 is typically adult onset diabetes, although childhood type 2 diabetes is skyrocketing too. The way that I think of that is that, to like kind of put it in layman's terms, it's when our body becomes sluggish and our pancreas is not secreting as much insulin as it needs, or it's like clogged almost. Like it's very sluggish. It's like spitting out insulin and our body just cannot seem to like produce the amount that it needs. And typically it's due to like inflammation within the body or poor diet, which leads to inflammation, right? So poor diet, lack of activity, which all can lead to inflammation or lack of detoxing our body, right? Movement is going to help to like, we sweat, we detox, like we get the toxins out of our body. And when we're not doing that, if you really just zoom out for a second, and if you are not putting good fuel into our body, that takes like It puts more toxins into our body. We're going to get kind of clogged up and inflamed because our body doesn't know what to do. And then say you don't move at all, then you're not helping your body to like get rid of all the nasty stuff. So no wonder why there are parts of our body that become overly inflamed and are not as efficient as they should be. So that's type 2. Typically adult onset, but children aren't getting it. Or they're becoming pre-diabetic, which would mean that you're on the cusp of that. So the thing with type 2 is that you can take medication for that. So some type 2 will start a small dose of insulin if needed. Most type 2s have like an oral medication that they could take. Or they can just change it with diet and exercise, which is a beautiful thing. And it can be reversed, and it can even be eliminated completely. So through just lifestyle changes, through management of like sugar intake, highly processed foods, through movement of their body, through kind of stress management, all of those things, if you think about it, are going to decrease inflammation within the body, and it's going to help our body to be more efficient, a more efficient machine that can work in a way that is beneficial for our organs, our body, our food intake, all of the things. So type 1, you can't really get rid of. Type 2, oh boy, you can if you want to. So that kind of, I feel like that kind of sums up both of them.
Yeah, beautifully said from my understanding of this all. I think, I'm glad that you cleared that up, because friends of mine, relatives, people that I know that become pre-diabetic or type 2, they talk about it like it's a lifestyle, or like it's a sentence, like their life is forever being changed. And there's a disempowerment in there, that I don't think that they are hearing maybe from their doctors, or maybe they're just not getting the right information. Maybe we can zero in on some of the culprits that get vilified in this. So I'll just ask you this, like, are carbs a problem?
No.
Okay, unpack that for us. Explain to the people why carbohydrates are not a problem.
No. So I think it's important to know that carbs are like essential. It's an essential macronutrient for our body, and it's going to be fuel for our brain, fuel for our muscles. Like, we need that glucose to help us it'd be like asking, can't I just do an oil change to my vehicle, but I'm not going to put any gasoline in it? No, that's probably not good for your car. So you need a good balance of all the macronutrients. So fats, carbs, protein. Now, I say that with a caveat of everybody and every body is different. So how I may process certain macronutrients is probably different than how you process macronutrients. So it's good to also know to read your body, like what works best for your body, and also to put those carbohydrates in a place that you're using it as fuel. So for me, as a type 1 diabetic, I have to calculate carbohydrates, but I'm still a human, so I do need carbs. And putting it in the place of like before a workout or after a workout is really advantageous for me, because my muscles are going to be fueled. Like, I'm going to use that fuel and be able to power through a workout. If somebody said to me, well, I eat a bunch of carbs right before bedtime, you're probably not using those carbohydrates as like a source of energy, right? Because you're sleeping. So I think that carbs kind of get this, I think it gets mixed messages. Like, carbs are amazing, carbs are horrible. No, like, it all depends on your body and what do you want to get out of the carbohydrates. Also, are they processed carbs? Like, what type of carbohydrates are you ingesting? So if I'm eating like a sweet potato, that's very different than me having a donut. And also, I think it's good to know like how your body is going to process that. If we're not giving our body carbs, it's going to search for it anyways. So it's going to break down muscle and then break those amino acids down and then turn it into glucose, so that we do have a form of glucose that our body can function off of. So even if you wanted to do a no carb diet, your body's going to find it anyways. And it might even take it from the protein intake that you're taking in. So you can't really do without it. Your body will find a way. I think it's important to know that like carbs are not the devil in that situation. Where we place the carbs, what type of carbs, are we pairing carbs? Like, are they fibrous carbohydrates? Like, what types are we putting into our body? And then also to know how your body works. So for type 2 diabetics, a big thing that I'll say is wearing a continuous glucose monitor is amazing, because you can say, for some people, popcorn is not something that does them well. They might skyrocket, or like jasmine rice, they skyrocket, but a sweet potato levels their, blood sugar out. So you also have to understand that it's very individual, like what works best for you. But completely eliminating is not something that your body just won't deal with it. It won't. You'll feel, and even in like a ketogenic diet, and there's so much information out there. For some people that may work initially, but your body's still asking for nutrients, and it's gonna find it. And eventually, long term, there's probably gonna be some negative impact from being so low carbohydrate, and that will show up down the road. So that's my 2 cents on carbs. I don't eat actually a lot of carbohydrates. Like I don't have big pasta bowls, but I love berries. I love mango. I love sweet potato, because I know that those carbs work really well for my body. I have mango to support, like if I'm dropping really low, it works very quick for me. Berries they're my favorite. I love berries, but berries kind of keep me a little bit even keel. Sweet potatoes are delicious, and I love to have them, and again, to keep my blood sugar even keel, and my digestion is good off of that. So what works for me might not work for the next person. Doesn't work for my husband. Like everybody's different. So when people get information, I always think it's great to read the information, take it with a grain of salt, and then be able to say, how does this apply to me individually?
Can we dive into this carb story a little bit more in terms of quality, or what is a good carb or bad carb? Like, how do we distinguish between these things? What are the factors involved that make one thing affect our blood sugar one way and another food affect it a different way?
Yeah. So for carbohydrates that are also paired with like fiber, so if you're looking at like, say, pears or berries or sweet potato, it's going to be a little slower to digest those. So your blood sugar is not going to spike immediately. If you were to have Swedish fish and it's not paired with anything else, then that's probably going to spike your blood sugar a little bit faster. And then you're going to have a dip. So for people who are non-diabetic, if they had Swedish fish, there's going to be like a spike in their sugar, and then their pancreas is going to be like, whoa, 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 and give it some insulin and then come down. The same would happen if you were watching like a CGM, and if I ate Swedish fish, I literally could see it in time what would happen to my blood sugar. And that is what's happening to our bodies when we don't have, or when we don't have diabetes. That's the same thing that's happening. Their bodies just get to like spoot out insulin as needed, right? So I don't think that there's a bad good. Like, I think that it's all what you're looking for. So, and honestly, if it's worth my money, like I have to spend money on it, it goes into my body, then I want it to be worth it. Like, I don't want to spend a lot of money on stuff that's just gonna like mess up my blood sugar, give me a headache. Like, there's no nutritional density in there. There's no vitamins and minerals. Like, I think about it on I guess like another level. A donut is yummy. Swedish fish are amazing. Like, I think that those are delicious. But there's no nutritional value that I can get out of those if I read the back of the ingredients or like the nutritional profile of it. So when I personally think of like what is a better choice, it'd be something that like when I look at it, I'm like, this is what I'm getting from this. Like, I am getting carbohydrates, but I'm getting fiber, and then I'm getting some vitamins, some other nutrients, some minerals. It's not going to spike my blood sugar. So I guess it's like being intentional about your choices and not being restrictive about your choices. Because if you're like, game on, this is a Swedish fish that I'm going to have, and I'm going to get a workout in, and I kind of want, like, I don't care, I want pure glucose right away to get my workout in, then do you. And if you're okay with that, then do it. If it sits well in your belly, if like it energizes you, fantastic. But if you're looking for like things that are a little better of a choice for you, then I would dive deeper into the nutritional value of the food. It goes in your body. You have to spend money on it typically. So is it worth all of that? That's kind of how I choose, I guess, or I make the choices that I have.
I was listening to a researcher on an interview talking about thinking about these things in a different way. And certainly our lifestyle and our diet is a major factor in these numbers when we see kids becoming pre-diabetic and even like what we see in the adult population. And they pointed out that currently there's not a standardized test for insulin, but there is blood sugar. And the point was that they theorized that if I eat a Swedish fish, there's no way right now that we will measure how much insulin my body is pumping out to get the blood sugar to a normal level. Meaning my insulin level might be twice as much as your insulin level to process that food. And this is where ideas of like insulin resistance and even fatigue of these body mechanisms start to come into play. And so if you have a very sedentary life, if you're not moving and you're always eating these really simple refined foods, the mechanism that might be going on is that we're just asking our pancreases, our bodies, to just work on overload all the time to adjust for these higher glucose, and higher blood sugar levels. But we don't look at that number. We just look at what happens downstream with what the blood sugar level is, where it may take a lot of insulin to keep my blood sugar normal, So it's like a strain that we're not even accounting for, and we don't necessarily see show up until we notice, that the A1C is getting higher.
Right. And that A1C test is like a 3-month average, right? And it doesn't necessarily tell you even like time and range. So I'm able to see, and your wife is probably able to see time and range, meaning if my range of sugar that I want to stay in is between like 80 and 140, then I know that like I want to stay 80% of the time in that range. But what A1C does is you might have constant like high, low, high, low, high, low, right? And if your body is doing that, like it just calculates the average. So even for that, you don't want all those highs. Like no non-diabetic wants all those highs and then drops really low. And people have experienced this where like, I just feel really dizzy, or I feel super, super lethargic after a really big pasta meal. And like, it takes me a while and then I feel dizzy, and like, that might be your high and low. So if we could take more consideration of like, what is this food doing for my body? Like you can think of the taste, you can think of all that yummy stuff too, right? Like, but I think it is important of like the value of nutrients inside of food and what it might look like inside. Like when it goes in my body, what does my body have to do to process all this? And am I causing my body a little bit more of like a storm than is necessary? And I think I've been able to realize that through having like the little window of opportunity of like seeing it firsthand and like feeling it and learning more about nutrition. But I do feel we have highly processed foods that are easily accessible, so prevalent, like it's everywhere, right? And it doesn't cost that much. But then what ends up happening is we're not considering, when I put this inside of my body, what does my body actually have to do in order to process it? And that bogs down the body. So like it bogs down the body in a way, like you're just asking for your engine to do way too much. And no wonder why we have like a lot of nasty stuff happening with like our little ones too. Like even for my little ones, I want them to know what nutrition they're getting through their food. And maybe that's something, that could be implemented into schools, or I think adults need to kind of relearn too. Like just looking at something and saying, what is this doing for me? And like it seems simple, but I know how challenging or how difficult that one step could be. And then I would say, well, see it as an opportunity, because this might be the one thing that like really gets you to that place where you're feeling good. And like you don't have heart disease, high cholesterol, type 2 diabetes, like you're not getting all those things.
So my advice for anyone, that has a diagnosis like this coming on is to actually find someone like yourself, to hire a nutritionist, hire a coach to work with them. But if you're not in the position to do that, what advice do you generally have for someone that is maybe pre-diabetic or type 2 diabetic? They've just got the diagnosis. They're being told they need to be put on this medication and that this is going to be their lifestyle now. What do you say to them?
The first thing is to bring awareness. Like, just become aware. So, like, this is what you have, and this is the plate that's in front of you. Could we just become more aware of the choices that we've been making daily? And that's it. I want you to think about, how are you hydrating yourself? How is your sleep been? How is your stress management? How are your social relationships? How is the food that you're taking in? Do you feel like if you rattled off all the food to me, that you also could say you're getting, good vitamins, nutrients, fiber, like you're getting healthy fats? And can you say that to me? Like, just bring more awareness to the choices that you're making. And it's not saying, I need you to calculate everything. Like, I need you to take one step at a time. If this is like the cards that we're dealt, now we have to move in a direction to help us to navigate that. So the variables that are involved with the cards that are dealt are typically lifestyle choices around us. So we need to look at those variables. And let's like break it down a little bit to what's more digestible and something that you can tackle. So if somebody says, I just ask, how's your nutrition? How's your movement? And how have you been feeling in other areas of your life? How's your stress? Are you happy? Like, and those are like the three kind of areas. And then we can dive even deeper into that, right? So then I can say, great, could we audit some of those areas? Like, could we like take inventory of our nutrition and then audit a little bit and then say, you know what? I always get like a grande frappuccino every single morning. And can you become curious on that choice? Could you do something different? Like, could you just become curious about it? So I feel like a more gentle approach, because people are resistant to change. Change is scary. I get it. Like, I get it. But also staying stuck and staying in the place that you're at right now is horrible. So either we're going to go through change together, because on the other side it might be friggin' beautiful, or we're going to just stay stuck here. So like, you make your decision what path you want to go on. And that doesn't mean that like the path of like change is going to be easy. But I also think that you have to see things with like, you know what though? Every choice that I make that leads me to a better path, that has me living a longer, healthier life and allows me to do the things that I want in life, like, okay, I could do that. Like, that's worth like the little hiccups along the way, and worth me not having the frappuccino. And so, I mean, it's so multi-layered what I would say to people, but I think like your awareness is really important. Number one, nothing just like happens for no reason, right? Like, it wasn't like all of a sudden you're pre-diabetic. all of a sudden. Like you've been doing nothing at all and you just have it. It doesn't work like that. So you have to be able to like take ownership and say, okay, I've been making some choices that brought me to this place, right? This goes with everything in life. Everything in life. Like if you tell me that you have plantar fasciitis, you didn't just wake up with plantar fasciitis. Like you've been doing some things to contribute to that plantar fasciitis. So if you have an unhealthy relationship in your marriage, like something happened. So you have to take ownership of it. And sometimes I think that's like the scariest part, but that's like the first thing you should probably do. And then know that like that's okay. Okay, great. We reflected, we looked at the variables that are contributing to this. Now what? Like what are action steps? And what is reasonable right now for you to tackle that feels okay? And like what kind of support would you need around you? So that's like my first. And I always think a coach is really good too.
Well, this mindset approach, you're a mindset coach, and this mindset approach, I can just hear built into this entire conversation. Has that part been integrated into what you do from the start? Is this like a newer part to who you are and how you show up?
So I feel like I always did it. I feel like I always was the one where even my family would be like, don't let Danika ask you how you're doing. Like, because they knew like, she's going to go into those places that like feel a little uncomfortable, but I know I probably should talk about them. And I think that's just who I've always been. So it's really hard for me to not bring that into my coaching. And I think that I always did that even when I was like I was a personal trainer for a while, and then I was fitness director, and then I started coaching clients for competitions only. But through even that, I would care about nutrition, and I would care about their fitness level and like their training and cardio and everything, but that's not the whole story. So like you could be miserable and like so completely not happy and like following your macros, but that doesn't bring me joy like as a coach, like, and it probably really stifles your progress too. So I always knew that had to be another layer. So that is something that I really pushed for, to have like a mindset coach within the fitness world that focused on like, yes, fitness and health, but that maybe there are other coaches that like they're doing their macros, they're doing like the client's training, but then I can come in and work alongside all of that and help to navigate other I guess like stressors or moments of like discontent internally for them to help them with their programming, right? So the mindset piece has always been there. I think I was just able to expand it even more and like continue to grow on it because they are all interconnected, right? You even mentioned like sometimes people get a diagnosis and they're like, oh, it's a life sentence. It is what it is. Well, I guess you could think like that, but that doesn't sound like it's going to bring you anywhere. Like, so how does that work out for you? So like you get a diagnosis and you just say, all right, it is what it is. Tell me how that plays out, because it doesn't sound pretty good. And unless that's the journey that you want to take, but 9 times out of 10, it's probably not. So I think there always has to be like the mindset, like what is the internal dialogue? How are we communicating with ourselves when we see barriers in front of us or cards that are given to us that like we weren't expecting? How are we going to navigate that? Are we navigating it with, I can do this? Like, or are we just completely feeling defeated from the get-go? And if we are feeling defeated from the get-go, where did we learn that? Like, where did that come from? And why did we automatically go into this default mode of like, seems about right, or okay, whatever, it's fine. I guess I'm not worthy of like a great, vibrant, healthy life. Like, where did that all come from? So there has to be that conversation. And because it helps us to like figure out ourselves. And then after you become aware of all of that and you learn about your internal dialogue, what's aligning well with like the person that you want to be and what's not, then you can kind of take all that information and do everything on your own and feel more empowered to do so.
Yeah, for me, it's impossible to disconnect these areas. Like it's all integrated, you know? It's like, I think every coach or personal trainer should have a mindset component to what they're doing, because like the example that you said, like you can be as disciplined and like hustling hard and achieving all your goals, but if you're disregarding your mental state, your emotional state, I think we all know, we've all experienced situations in different areas in our lives where that eventually catches up. And so if you're not looking after the whole individual, like every part, then you're probably not going to achieve your goals, and you're not going to enjoy the process as much as you would if you're considering every part of who you are.
Right. Yeah. I do feel people also like don't know how to navigate that. Like they're like, oh, that's a little too deep. I don't know if I want to go there. It doesn't have to be that intense. Like it could be as simple as like acknowledging that like some days are rough, and like how does that make you feel, and how do you navigate that? How do you cope with that? And that's it. Or when do you feel proud of yourself? Or when was the last time that you had a challenge put in front of you and you were able to get through that challenge and you actually gained pretty cool insight and skills and tools that now you use? So I think that it doesn't have to be as like deep. People kind of get a little nervous sometimes, like, oh my God, I don't want to go so far back in the past and like uncover so much. I'm like, well, you just don't have to. But wouldn't it be cool to like open up a little bit of space to be even better than what you're doing now and to see even more of your potential? Because I think that we tap into maybe like 25% of it sometimes, and there's a lot out there, so might as well. And it doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. Maybe it's just being able to recognize like emotions are just literally there to say hi, and then you look at them, you are aware of them, you acknowledge them, and then they go, instead of being like, can't feel that, don't say that. That doesn't really allow us for growth in any way.
Well, Danika, I've really enjoyed this time together. I want to point out that you work with diabetics and non-diabetics. And so if someone's curious about reaching out and maybe working with you, how would they do that?
Yeah, so they could reach out to me at danika@prophysique.com. And I'm also right on the website. So you could go right on the website. You can sign up for a free consultation, a free call for me, for mindset coaching or for regular coaching. And then, oh my gosh, I don't even know my own handle. I'm on Facebook, and I think I'm Danika Johnson R_ for Instagram.
Great. Well, I'll put all those links in the show notes and make sure people know how to connect with you if they want to. Thanks so much for this conversation today, for clearing up some of this mystery around type 1 and type 2 diabetics, and for sharing how these diagnoses aren't, some sort of sentence to a life that you don't want, that you can work with them and learn from yourself and grow.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right, that's it. I hope you really enjoyed that conversation with Danika. If you're interested in her work, maybe you want to schedule a free consult, I'm going to put the link in the show notes and in the description in the YouTube channel. Thank you for listening today, and we'll see you next time.